Habitat for Humanity in Helena has went out and actually bought a 75-foot lot. All the neighbors see, well, you can put one home. Who can afford that $180,000 for the one lot? But it's actually 3 25-foot lots. They've come in with common wall, 6-foot offsets on each side, common wall in the middle, and put 3 homes in it. So the center person gets 22 feet, and I think everybody else gets 30 feet, and you end up with your 75-foot lot. That's how they're solving this, because now that $180,000 is only $60,000.
So they're creating the division benefit without necessarily creating a density problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're
So-
seeing that a lot of
These
cities
are-
and stuff.
Yeah, pocket communities are another really good, that's what Wood Valley did, was a pocket community on theirs to create atmosphere, like you don't realize how close you are in there, but the way that they've designed them, those pocket communities are really cool and gives a high density within it.
So another thing, just to the real estate realtors, from a marketing standpoint, I think this is a conversation you have with them, because they get a lot of people calling investors with a lot of money. How do you sell that investor on a co-op that's got the money to come in and develop whatever it is? And I think they need to be educated as well, because I talked to a lot of real estate people, going, yeah, we got people from Hawaii, come here, buy land, buy this, buy that, trying to sell them on the co-op idea that's gonna fit town. Of course, they're always gonna say, well, what's in it for me?
That's where it usually
That's where we put a
stumbles.
lot of this money. I think that's where the road going down from a marketing standpoint. You get the local real estate, gosh, this is an alternative for the guy that's got a pocket full of money, wanting to invest in property. Well,
And you can still make money, but it's not 30%.
It's capped at 8%.
If the co-op is having profit.
and I don't know if that's a good thought or not.
So the way co-ops in investment, co-ops have common shares, which is your ownership stock. That's where you, okay, I'm gonna say this, do not go to Brad and tell him Rocky Mountain runs this way, because they do operate differently. This is the type of co-op we're talking about right now. So common stock is your ownership. Everybody has a 1 vote, equal ownership. And then you have preferred stock option. Preferred stock option is that investment option where if Brian and I are part of a co-op, we both have our common shares. Brian really wants to see it up and going. He buys $5,000 of preferred stock. The only difference between us, we still have our equal vote. We still have our equal ownership. Brian gets paid out dividends before I do because he has that stock, that investment stock first. And it's in the state law that you pay out your preferred stock before anybody else. So you do have some attractiveness there, and then 8% biennium is what you are allowed to go up to. I will say you don't see that very often in any of the co-ops because again, the purpose is not usually cash return as much as social. But could you sell, just like you were talking about, could you create, like we want to welcome you to our community, can you put so much in there and then would you mind buying 5 preferred stock to help us support XYZ to keep this community so vibrant on what you're
There's
purchasing?
a small percentage that want to do that. No,
Yeah.
I'd rather just go buy this land and build whatever I want, so.
Yeah, there's that, but somewhere there's people that help
That'd be
people
awesome.
more.
Everybody thinks they're a developer until you start to go down that step, and it's not an easy path. It gets very expensive, but you bring 5 or 6 people who have some real cash together. Now it's something that you could potentially lump your way through.
So in respect to time, I want to I want to make sure we leave you guys with something that you want. So Lindsay's captured 4 different ways that you could approach with a co-op style. Are any of these jumping out as ones you really want to move down?
The unfortunate answer is yes.
I feel that way every time now for my co-ops.
If you want us to pursue looking at a design shred that would look at this kind of mixed use,
Our biggest problem is always going to be that initial investment. How do we make, not just where do we get the funds,
Right.
but how are we taking advantage of that initial acquisition of property
Yep.
such that we really are managing an affordable path to success. Honestly, which of those comes first? has more to do with figuring out how that initial acquisition takes place here. To be honest, we are surrounded by ranchers with boatloads of money. And it's the amount of wealth in this community is actually staggering. You just don't see it. I think that if you had, instead of saying 30% return, you went to them and said, you want to put some of your money in a money market account, we've got something that gives you the same kind of return that blesses the community at the same time.
You have to sell it.
Right. So it's possible to come up with a structure that brings in the cash. But then there's the problem of acquiring that initial investment of property. Are we going to pick up a bunch of existing homes that need help? Are we going to find a chunk of land on, I forget the owner's name, just across from the LDS church that is the most logical extension, Shipman, because it's actually in the city boundaries right now. Are we going to take advantage of that big old pipeline of water that runs out to the fairgrounds? How we acquire that first bundle of property defines which of those comes first. Because if we can get a big old block, something like a senior housing makes sense. If we can only pick up individual properties inside of the boundary of Townsend, the investment path makes more sense. The teachers and workforce employer owned, that's actually something that can be dealt with almost, I think, any kind of investment, initial investment, because you're asking Billings Clinic to contribute, you're asking the school district to contribute. You're asking all of the small businesses. It's like, you may only have one employee that can need this kind of help, but if we get 30 of you together, that's a chunk of money. But it all really boils down to how you get the first block of land. And can you get it cheaply enough or effectively enough that you're either getting cheap land or cheap taxes?
So if I may push back a little bit on, I agree with you.
Oh, hit me with that baseball
One
bat.
thing that I would caution on is that by trying to jump to the project first, you actually don't have the vehicle to take advantage of it. And so you almost have to do a parallel process of what, do you want to create a co-op in a parallel world, like parallel to try and find that property, that first acquisition, because I do see where you're at.
Chickens and eggs are the
Yes,
problem.
this is why, and I try really hard not to. Your most flexible option of those four is your investment co-op, because you can do all of these other three things underneath that model. And while you're looking at what kind of acquisition, what kind of things you want, that's when you start getting your members in your community to start understanding the vastness of what this kind of a co-op could do.
And ideally, in that process, you find that thing.
Yeah.
Because somebody in that community goes, I know where it's at, right? Because now you have them engaged, they're excited, they already see it.
And then they're bringing that idea forward, then you start working on that project, you have a co-op coming, you're recruiting members of the same, like it can all come together, but you don't start an acquisition before you even start, because this is a long process.
It's not, I'm not pitching the idea that we need to start acquiring first. I'm pitching the idea that we need to have a better understanding of what or how we're going to acquire before we make that permanent decision, because once we get too far down that line, shifting, I assume.
Not between these four, you guys could start, so if I make a recommendation, start your steering committee now that is working with you to help identify which route you want to go. The steering committee can start putting together a lot. This is who probably through Impact we would be working with. And that steering committee starts running the pros and cons of these different types. Where do we want to go? Start talking about what is that kind of, what does this look like for our first project? They start laying out that thing. And that process and that visioning and that work that comes forth, this kind of starts fleshing itself out.
Because that landowner could become a preferred stock person. So again, let's think of somebody that is getting close to 65. I don't want a big capital gain at this point. All of a sudden, I'm donating some raw property that's either in the city or on the edge of the city, which creates a kind of a guaranteed, we call it mailbox money coming in for the rest of your life.
Oddly enough, I happen to know an individual who has already sold the land and is now looking for a way to squirrel $3.5 million away without getting the government to take it.
Exactly.
Either one side of that fence or the other, there are opportunities, and they exist right now.
There is that, I mean, would you rather send the money to DC or put it into your community, and I'd still get a return, but I get a return that I'm kind of sheltered in
Right.
a specific way. Right.
And your community is benefiting
And that's it.
from
You-
your
you're-
assets.
You're still getting that return, but you're creating the pathway to make sense. Exactly, so.
Okay, you would like, this is just what is a co-op or general handout information. Okay, so where do you want to go from here?
That's a good question.
I think, and everything else that you do, it feels like we have a couple more things that we need to be thinking about.
Vicki, do we want to try to bring together your original housing team again? Or do we want to try to create something new?
Yes,
I love
and by
that.
that I mean, the other two members of that committee need to be invited.
Yes,
Craig and John,
Each one.
Craig and John, or,
Leslie and Samantha.
oh, yes,
I mean, that's an email group that has been sitting idle for over a year.
Right, some of those properties that are still at.
we like our community review, community assessments processes. It creates this interaction.
I think it's great, and you have potential members in the audience too. And so maybe the opportunity is
Yep,
to
and
use
you-
your housing committee that you had with a potential addition or two, and create a steering committee to explore this. And then that steering committee, that's usually our first step, and then we'll start diving into deeper education, what does a co-op look like, all of those details are really diving into.
Thank you, guys.
Great to meet you.
So,
Take
the
care.
question I have is, we can't get them in their house.
You like working with me? Keep an eye out for it. This is sitting. Put lights on it. Make sure, yeah, you still have. You don't see that. No.